Now, I want to look at a particular machine, right? I was told to come up with um something basic, right? So this is a demo on the basis of ethical hacking, right? And for this demo, we want to look at a machine from the platform VulnHub, a machine from the platform VulnHub, right? And VulnHub is a platform where you have vulnerable machines by design. They are intentionally made what? Vulnerable. Are you getting that now? They're intentionally made vulnerable, right? Where you can actually get to test your skills as, as an ethical hacker, a cybersecurity enthusiast, or whatever, right? You get to test your skills and all of that. Now, their machines are CTF based, what we call capture the flag, right? And there are different types of CTFs, right? The one we want to actually look at today is a type of CTF we call boot to root. What does that mean? So basically, you are given a virtual machine, you download it and you enumerate the services, you exploit it, any exploitation, then you escalate, that's privilege escalation. You take your permission or your rights from a normal user to an elevated user, what we call the administrator, the root user, right? You also have Jeopardy type of CTF, where you are giving challenges on different categories like web, crypto, forensics, open source intelligence, steganography, binary exploitation, and a whole lot, reverse engineering. You have attack defense CTF. Basically, this actually emulates a purple team exercise. In cybersecurity is divided into two actually. You have the offensive guys and you have the defensive guys. But recently, a new um something came up. The offensive guys are seen as the red team guys or the red teamers. The defensive guys are seen as the blue teamers, right? Now, the combination of red team and blue team is what we call purple team or purple teaming, right? And that's what attack defense CTF actually looks like. Not to waste much of our time because our time is fast spent, we're going to be solving a particular or trying to hack a particular machine called DeathNote, right? DeathNote 1. Okay, let me just search for this on the browser directly. DeathNote 1. Now, I already have a write-up on this, right? Which will be shared to you it will be shared to you how to actually, what's it called? Assess it. It will be shared to you how to go about it. I mean, the entire hacking, everything you're going to see me do. There's like a detailed write-up. This is actually a very, very basic machine and it's beginner friendly, right? Look at it now. When you check the description, you see level easy. Don't waste too much time thinking what? Outside the box. It's a straightforward box. It works better with VirtualBox rather than VMware. These are virtualization softwares, right? There's VirtualBox, there's VMware. But for this demo, just like the designer or the creator of the machine said, we're going to be using what? VirtualBox instead of VMware. So you can download the machine, right? You see the virtual machine. The format is an OVA file. That's Open Virtual Appliance file, right? And you see some other things. You can download the machine. It's just 658 MB. When you click on this, you get it downloaded. Now, in my write-up, I already provided how I was able to set this up in my VirtualBox, right? Already I have it set up as you can see on the screen. You see DeathNote is running and you see my Kali machine, right? Now, when setting them up, both of them have to be on the same network, what we call NAT, network address translation, so that they can be able to communicate together. What does that mean? From Kali, we should be able to get the IP address of this machine, right? That's because of they're on the same network, what we call NAT network. If they are not on NAT, there's going to be an issue. You will not be able to communicate. In fact, you won't be able to proceed. And all of these things are already on the walkthrough or write-up, right? That's going to be shared to you after this session, right? Let's get into it. Now, when you start the DeathNote machine, you're greeted with this, just like what you can see on the screen, DeathNote login. Now, for some odd reasons, as a hacker, there are two things you can actually do. You can decide to go to Google and just put something like DeathNote 1 login or DeathNote 1 default login. You might be lucky, you might get result because why? This machine might have been existing, right, on the internet. And for some odd reason, somebody might have solved it or something. So you might be lucky to get the logins. But for some odd reasons too, suppose we can't actually get, like we don't know the logins because we're still going to crack that anyways. Hopefully time permits us. We don't know the logins. What then do we do? How do we get the username and the password, right? Or how do we get the IP address? Because the IP address is the most important thing we actually need to actually perform any hacking thing, right? Now let me start my Kali. Put in my username and my password, right? Let's wait for that to, come up. That's still coming up. All right. I guess we are all set. Now I'm going to open my terminal. I'm going to launch my terminal. Right. I'm going to launch my terminal. And I presume we can all see my terminal. Right. Let me maximize this. All right. Now, for this demo, we actually need to get the IP address of the DeathNote machine because without it, we can't do anything. It's like as if we're wasting our time. There's nothing for us to do. We need an IP address before we can actually go ahead to do anything. Now, there are two ways we can actually get the IP address, right? We can either use this command, sudo arp scan, right? Now, ARP stands for Address Resolution Protocol. What exactly does it do? Now, this is a little bit of networking. It basically routes or map an IP address to its equivalent MAC address. There's something called IP address. There's something called MAC address. What exactly is IP address? IP address basically refers to the logical address of a system. MAC address is the physical or what we call the hardware address of a system. That's different between both of them. Let me bring it to our level in a way we understand. Now, see MAC address as your name. IP address is simply where you are. If Richard currently, let's say Richard is in a particular hotel in Kenya, right? He leaves that hotel and goes to another place. What changes? It is only his location that changes. Will his name change from being Richard? Of course not. And that's just the logic behind it. So Richard being his name represents his MAC address, which cannot be changed, right? Then his location represents his IP address, right? So we're going to run this command. I put in the password. Now this came up with, 3 IP addresses, right? Now the normal thing we do is actually to test the 3 of them to actually know which one exactly is. And when I mean testing them, I mean trying to run like a scan on them. Or before running a scan, just let's say something like this now. Let me open this. Let me open my browser. And I just try to enumerate the web server to see if it's going to return anything. That's the normal thing to actually try. Try to enumerate the web server to see if it's going to return anything. Now, how do I do this? Let me try putting 10.0.2.1, right? Hit enter. Let's see if it returns anything. It doesn't return anything, right? Okay, let's try 10.0.2. It doesn't return anything either. All right. Now let's try 10.0.3. Let's see if it returns anything. Now, this also does not return anything, right? Now, because I've done this before and already I have this set up, right? The 10.0.2.3 happens to be the IP address of the DeathNote machine we actually want to crack. But then it's not actually going to load. When we try to enumerate the web server here, it's not going to work. It's not going to load, right? Why is that? That's because of we need to edit our etc host files. What exactly does that mean? There's something called etc host files, right? Let me clear the screen. Etc host files. We need to edit that. Now, what exactly does this file do? So basically, it maps host names to their IP addresses, just like what you can see on the screen. I use the command cat. Cat stands for concatenate. Basically, it's used to view the contents of a file, right? If you check on this side, on one side, you have IPv4 addresses and you have IPv6 addresses. On the other side, you have the host name. So we actually need to edit this file. But then before we edit it, the second way to actually get the IP address of that DeathNote machine is using sudo Netdiscover. But then this takes some time and I prefer ARP scan. Let's just allow this to run. It's still going to come up with the same IP addresses, 10.0. Blah, 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 and all of those kind of things. Let me Ctrl C out of this because of time constraints. It's actually scanning a different subnet. Okay, let's use nano to edit this. Oh, I need to leave this. I need to use sudo because I'm trying to perform some kind of elevated command or a command that requires elevated privileges. And as such, I need, let's call this DeathNote dot vuln. Let me Ctrl X, then save it. I'm out. And let's try that again. Let's see if it works this time. 10. Now we see it's loading. Now, did it work or it did not work? From the screen, you can see it actually worked. Are you seeing that now? You see it actually worked. Initially, when we tried it, it did not work. And that's because of what? It was not in the etc or etc host files. Remember I said the etc host files maps a host name to what? Its equivalent IP address, right? So somebody, let's say somebody that's not really familiar with networking now, and the person encounters this machine, the person will just, be trying series of things and be like, oh, perhaps it's my network. That's the reason why it's not loading. No, it's not your network. You need to check your etc host files. It might be the etc host files. Perhaps it has not been added. Now, when we open the web page, we are seeing, that's when we enumerate the web server. We are seeing this, right? We're seeing this. That's the first thing I advise people to do. When you're given a machine, the first thing you actually want to do is to enumerate the web server, right? That's the first thing you want to do. But before we continue there, we're going to use a tool called Nmap, right? But let me man Nmap for context purpose. Nmap stands for Network Mapper. It's a network exploration tool and security tool or a port scanning tool. If you man it, basically man means checking in the manual page or the reference guide. You see how it works, but because of time, we're not going to talk about that. So I want to run an Nmap scan, right, on this machine. I want to run an Nmap scan on this machine. Let's see, A10.0.2.3. Okay, let's make it a TCP SYN scan. In my write-up, I already explained some of what these things you've seen, right? I'm just trying to, keep up with time. In my write-up, when you go through the write-up or the walkthrough, you will see what some of these switches mean. Now, the Nmap scan is done. Let me explain what these switches mean. Sudo stands for super user doer, right? You have Nmap, the network mapper. T4 is telling you the thread use. Now, the higher the thread number, or the higher the timing, the faster it takes for the scan to complete or get completed. Now, you have from 0 to 5, right? So if somebody puts T5, it's going to take very, very fast. Or it's going to be very, very fast or something. Now, you have, what's it called? You have the switch A. A tells you, please run an aggressive scan on this particular machine. I need to run an aggressive scan on this particular machine. Now, ST is telling you a TCP SYN scan, right? A TCP SYN scan. That's a synchronization scan, right? Now, when we run the scan, we notice two things. We have two ports that are open, right? Two ports that are open. What are these ports? We have port 22 and port 80. Port 22, the service that runs on port 22 is SSH, which stands for Secure Shell. Are you seeing that now? Then for 80, you have HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, right? Now, when you're working with a CTF machine and you see port 22 open, SSH, that should not be your first go-to. The first thing that should come to your mind, or the first thing if you're thinking as an attacker, should be port 80. You should try to enumerate the web server first. That should be your focus. So enumerating the web server should be where your focus should be, before you can actually, because the truth about the matter is there's really nothing on port 22 you can actually do except performing more like a brute force attack, which you might see as time progress. Performing a brute force attack against the SSH server, right? So get a possible username and password. Now, we already have this. Coming back to this, please, let me open Notepad. As an attacker, when you're going through your CTF, you want to take notes of every single thing you're seeing. Now, when we enumerate, we notice it's a WordPress page, right? WordPress is a CMS, that's a content management system. We notice a WordPress page, and for me, I was seeing, we're greeted with a name, Kira. I am the god on New World. Now, this Kira might be a possible username. I want to take note of that. Kira. a possible username, right? A possible username. As you're doing your hacking, you're taking notes of every single thing you're seeing, right? We also see I'm the god on new world, and we see some other thing. I will eliminate you L. Now, this L could also be a possible username too, right? A possible username. We take note of that. We save it in our notes. A possible user name, right? And we say I am Light Yagami, blah 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 blah. Now, this Death Note is based on an anime character. For those of you that watch anime, there's an anime. I don't watch anime anyways, but I was just attracted to this particular machine, right? Because of curiosity and all. Now, when you scroll, you see my favorite line is what? Injustice. This might be a possible password or possible username. Either ways, we just take note of it, right? This is what we call reconnaissance. In ethical hacking, that's the first phase of ethical hacking. Reconnaissance. What does that mean? Information gathering. You're trying to gather information about your victim, right? You're trying to gather information, and we see, okay, we don't see any other thing. But then, if you check this side, you see there's a possible hint. When I click on that hint, I scroll. I am seeing something. What is that something? Find a notes.txt file on the server or see the L comment. Are you getting that now? They're telling us to find what? A notes. That means for some odd reasons, there's a file on this server, on this web server called notes.txt. I still need to take note of that too. Notes.txt file on web server, which means I have to find a way to enumerate that, right? If I scroll, I don't see any other interesting thing, right? Now, the next thing for me to do, or the next thing I can actually do, right? Let me take this back. The next thing I can actually do is to try to enumerate the robots.txt file, right? Try to enumerate the robots.txt file. Now, what exactly is robot.txt file? Basically, it's a file that, prevents, what's it called? Crawlers, internet crawlers from actually being indexed. For example, in some sites, perhaps your university site, if you go to the robot.txt file of, or let's say directory of your university site, you might get to see, as you might see certain things you're not supposed to see. You see something like allow, you see something like disallow, right? Now, allow, you could see something like maybe wp-admin.php. Let's say it's a search running on WordPress, right? wp-admin.php. That's disallowed, which means Google, when anybody searches for Chuka University, this person or anybody searching for Chuka University should not see admin.php. Like, that should not be part of the result that should be displayed. That is what the robot.txt, that's one of the many things robot.txt file actually does, right? Now, let's check the robot.txt file. Let's see if there's anything interesting there. Oh, sorry, my bad. Let's take this back. Robots.txt. Now, when we check the robot.txt, what do you see here? Fuck it, my dad. Added hint on important.jpg. So we are seeing another directory called what? Important.jpg. We are seeing another directory called important.jpg. Now we can decide to use curl, right? If you man curl, you see what it's used for. If you man it just for context purpose, you use transfer URL, it's used to transfer data from or to a server using URLs and a whole lot of things, right? Now let's try to use curl to actually enumerate that. Call http DeathNote.vuln, then let's see important.jpg. Now somebody will be like, can't I do this on the browser? Yes, you can, but just choose to use the terminal. You can actually do this on the browser, and by that I mean if you come to the browser, you just remove the robot.txt and put important.jpg, you get to see the same thing I'm seeing on my screen. Now when we enumerate that, we are seeing something. I am Suchiro Yagami, Light's father. I have a doubt if L is true about the assumption and Light is Kira. I can only help you by giving something important. Login username, user.txt. What does that tell you? We have gotten another file again. Remember the first file we saw was what? They said notes.ts. Now we've not gotten the file, but they told us that we should find the file on the web server. So in my best guess, I can say that this user.txt file, from what we saw here, right, is what? Possible username or list of usernames, right? Possible usernames. So let's call this username file, right? Username file. Then the notes.txt could be the password file. node.txt could be the password file, right? And it said, find it yourself, but I think it is in the hint section of the site. Now, I don't know the password. Find it yourself. I think it is in what? The hint section of the site. Now, let's go back to the site again. Let's load the WordPress site. WordPress site. Oh, that was 3S. All right. Now, this is the site, right? This is the site, as we can see on the screen. And they said it is in the hint. Now, let us click on the hint. Are we seeing anything that looks like as if it's the password? No. But then they said, find a note. So which means this actually satisfies or, agrees with the conclusion I said, which means the password is contained in this file, right? The password is contained in this file. Now, another thing as an attacker you want to do is to try to view the page source. When you right click, try to view the page source. Check to see if you're going to see anything interesting, right? Check to see if you're going to see anything what's interesting. View the page source. Now, when we view the page source, we are not, getting anything interesting. But when you scroll, you see too many things. But when you scroll up, right? Now, this actually takes time, but because of time constraint, I'm just going to do this fast. When I mean it takes time, on your own, you actually want to go through every single thing. If this happens to be a real world situation, right? Sometimes developers make mistake by commenting sensitive things or by putting sensitive things in the comment section, or let's say the what's it called, the page source of the code, not comment section. Sorry, the page source, right? Now, when you check here, we're seeing a lot of things. We are seeing too many things. But I'm interested in this line specifically. I'm interested in this. If you see, we're having WordPress, WP content, uploads 2021, 7, blah, blah, blah. Now, let us check what exactly is here. Let's copy this. Let's copy this and paste it. Right. Now, when we hit enter, we are seeing that, obviously, this is the place where all of the pictures, all of the images are being stored, right? What we can see on the screen. But let's say I delete this particular image, right? I want to see other things that are most likely stored on this directory. And I hit enter. What do you see? I see a lot of things. I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing. I see a lot of things, which obviously means this is where a lot of things are being stored on the web server. Now, when I scroll, boom, I get to see the notes.txt file. I also see the what? User.txt file. Now, I download these files. I click on this one. Oh, okay, let's copy the file. Then let us put it in a text file. Let's copy it and put it in a text file. Right. Remember, we said this might be a possible list of what? Passwords. Nano notes.txt. Nano is a text editor. And let me paste that. Control Shift and V. Control X to exit, and I'm out of there. Let's go back. Take this back and do the same thing for the user.txt file. Right? Contains a possible list of what? Usernames. I copy that as well. Control C. Then come here, nano users.txt. I paste that. And I save it. I'm out of there. Right. Now we already have the notes.txt and we have the users.txt from everything. If you see this hint here. Now the question exactly is, what then can we use this thing to do? What can we do with it? Now, the first thing, remember that when we were doing our Nmap scan, we only saw two things. Port 22 was open, which is SSH, right? And port 80 was open, right? And already we've enumerated the web server and we've seen what we've seen or what we can see from the web server. That tells you that these resources, I mean the node.txt and user.txt, could be what you need to actually perform a brute force attack on the SSH server. Remember, there were only two ports open. So because of that, we're going to try to perform a brute force attack on the SSH servers, on the SSH server, right? And for this, we're going to use a tool called Hydra, right? We're going to use a tool called Hydra. Hydra is a popular password cracking tool. If you man Hydra, you see how it works. I like manning them because in case you forget a particular command, you don't necessarily need to panic. If you man it, you see how it works, the different switches you have. Or suppose you don't want to man it, you can also check the help page, right? You see how to use the command. You haven't provided with an example. Are you seeing that now? It's an example on how to use it. So I'm just going to copy this, right? I'm going to copy this because this is actually what I want to use. What I want to use something similar to this. Let me clear my screen and paste that, right? Now, I'm going to change a few things. I'm going to change the IP address, of course, 10.0.2.3. I'm going to change the protocol because it's SSH and not FTP we want to crack. SSH. I'm going to change the name of the password. Now, you use capital letter P when you don't know the password. That's you're trying to crack the password. When you provide the password, what's it called? A password file, right? And you use capital letter L when you're also trying to provide, you don't know the particular user. So you provide a user list file. And we're using users.txt, right? Let me check that to be sure it is user.txt and not users. Yes, we're in order. So notes.txt and users.txt, right? So this is what we want to do. We want to crack the SSH login. This is a brute force attack. I'm trying to crack the SSH this thing of this particular server. Right, let's allow that to run. Brute force attack usually takes time depending on what exactly you're working with. Right, it takes some time depending on what you're working with. Do we have any questions so far?
If you have any question, kindly raise up your hand. If you have any questions so far for Gideon. Seems no questions.
This is one of the reasons I do not like brute force attack. It takes time. Any questions?
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay,
All right, I'm
Meshach, yes.
listening.
For the DeathNote machine, should it be running on the same VirtualBox, or you can use Linux on a different like WSL, but the DeathNote machine is running on a VirtualBox?
Yeah, you can use Linux and WSL. You can also use what's it called? You can use the DeathNote machine inside the WSL. There are ways to actually configure it, but then just for seamless what's it called? Just for seamless operation, it's actually advisable. You just get VirtualBox and you configure it inside VirtualBox. If you check my tags bar, I don't know if you can see my tags bar. You notice I have VMware beside the edge icon. I have got VMware beside the edge icon. But then I can't use this machine on VMware. That's because of I've tried it before and it's not really stable. The way the person that created the machine actually suggests you actually use it on VirtualBox, right? Now from the screen, you see that the password has been cracked and the username has been cracked, right? We already have a username and a possible password. Let me Control C out of this. Let me hold this. Now let us try to log in to this. SSH L is the username. Remember, if you check our list, our notes, we already said something. We said L is a possible what? Username. Kira could also be a possible username. I am Justice 3 could be a password or username. I'm already saw that from the password being cracked. So SSH, the username at the IP address. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes. Then we have to put in the password. The password is death for me. No, death is not for us. Please. All right. Now we are in, right? We are in, right? Now, the next thing we want to do is, first of all, when we type pwd to print what working directory we're currently logged into, we're logged into home and the L directory, right? When we try typing lsal to list everything here, right? Now, there's a particular directory that is here, but for some odd reasons, you won't get to see it, right? You won't get to see it. Now, if you notice, when we type lsal, we are seeing user.txt. But then if you check, the owner of the file is what? Root. And the group of the file is also root, which means we have not escalated our privileges yet. We don't have that, what's it called, that right or that permission to actually, access that file, right? Now we have to change directory to a particular directory, which is the opt directory, which for some odd reasons you won't see here. It's a hidden directory. cd opt, just like you can see. If you notice, it has changed. Now, when we're inside there, we type ls to see what is inside. We see that there's a particular directory called L, right? Let's change directory to L. Let's see if anything is there. When we type ls again, what do you see? We are greeted with two folders or two directories, fake notebook rule and Kira case. Now, by way of instinct, one will be prompted to check the first thing, which is the fake notebook. So let's, change directory to that place. Fake notebook rule. Now, when we type ls, we are seeing two things. case.wav and hint. Now, case.wav obviously is a WAV file, more like an audio file or something, right? But let's check the hints first. I'm curious in the hint. Before I proceed, let's know what is in the hint. We are told to use what? CyberChef. Now, CyberChef is a cybersecurity tool used to actually decode a lot of things. Basically, it's doing what a real-world chef will do, right? Basically, a real-world chef can bake or cook anything. So CyberChef can decode or encrypt or encode anything, right? Now, let me cut this file. I want to cut this file. I'm not opening the file. I'm not opening the .wav file. I want to see the content of the file. Now, when I cut it, I'm seeing different things. If you are familiar with CTFs, you understand that this can be seen as, what's it called? Hexadecimal string, right? That's base 16. If you're used to CTFs, or maybe you understand the basis of, computing and stuff, you know that this is what? A base 64 string. Now, we are told to use CyberChef. I've copied this. Let me come here, open a new terminal, open a new tab, right? Open a new tab. Now, I want to type CyberChef to open the tool. Automatically, it's going to open my web browser for the tool. And I'm seeing CyberChef. You can see CyberChef. I'm seeing CyberChef. It's still opening. All right. Now, CyberChef is done opening, right? It's done opening. When we paste it here, the input, right? We want to come to, now this is to X. This is from X. Obviously, now, if you hover around this, you see that what you are seeing here, it said convert a hexadecimal byte string back into its raw value. If you look at the example very well, it is similar to what you have on the screen, if you can look at it very, very well. So obviously, I want to select this because I'm converting from hexadecimal to its original or raw value. How do I select that? I double click on it, right? What do you see? I'm greeted with something else. Now, if you are familiar with CTF or if you are familiar with encoding very well, you understand that this is a base 64 string. What you can see. So basically, this was encoded from hexadecimal to base 64. Then from base 64, we still need to decode it to its raw value. Are you seeing that now? Right? So this is what we call data obfuscation. This is not encryption. Encryption and encoding are not the same thing. Right? Encoding has to do with, changing data formats. Encryption, basically, you're trying to, conceal a particular message, and it works with private key and public key and knowing the encryption algorithm. So I copy this, right? I come here, delete this, paste it again. Then I want to select from base. Let me delete the recipe, clear the entire recipe. Then select from base 64, right? Now, what do you see? We have a possible password, which is good news. We've got a possible what? Password, which is Kira is evil. So Kira is evil is a possible password. Let's come back to our terminal, right? Kira is evil is a possible password. So we want to switch user to Kira. That's what we want to do. We want to switch user now to Kira because obviously Kira is a possible username, right? And we have to put Kira's password. Kira is evil. On Linux, when you're typing the password, you don't get to see it. Now, if you notice on the screen, you see that it is showing. You can see it on the screen. Are you seeing that now? Let me clear the screen. You can see Kira DeathNote is showing on the screen, which means we're already logged in as Kira. Now, but then we are not still root. We are not still root. Remember, this is like a boot to root kind of machine. We are not still root. Now, what do we do? To actually check the privileges or the permissions of Kira, what Kira can actually do, we run this command, sudo space L, to see what Kira can do. What permissions does Kira have? What can she do? Now, we see that from here, we see that Kira has what? The permission to run any command on DeathNote. How do I know this? It's being shown on the screen, all. So Kira can run any command on what? DeathNote, from what we can see on the screen, which is actually good news. So I will run this sudo sul, right? What do you see? Automatically, I switched user to an administrative user, right? Now, what this L means is, give me like a new login shell, right? Login like as if you're logging in from this particular shell. That's what L means, the switch L. If you notice, I'm already root, which is a good news. I'm root, right? What can I do? Let me type ls. I see a particular text file called what? Root.txt. Let's cut that file. Root.txt. What is there? I'm seeing congratulations. So this is how easy we actually solve this. Like I said, it's actually an easy machine. It's just to give you like a feel of actually how capture the flags or how most things are in the real world. In the real world scenario, you will not obviously see this kind of thing. But then in the real world scenario, you are enumerating every single port you see open. If you notice, we did not really enumerate the SSH port. We just solely perform the brute force attack on the ports. Nothing really serious, right? So this is how we solved this machine. This was how we were able to hack into this machine, right? And this is the creator of the machine, right? You see his name. You can check him on Twitter, on X, and all.